You've lived a few different lives: boxer, soldier, writer, father. If someone met you for the first time today, how would you describe yourself to them?
I'm just a guy trying to make the most out of my short time on this planet. Is Yeah, that's really the best way to say it. I know that getting the most out of your time is really a combination of two activities, two meta activities, two meta ideas. One, you have to be pursuing things, and in that pursuit, those should be like challenging. They should force you to change and grow. If they don't, then like they're not worthy goals. I'm not saying they need to be like world beater goals. They don't need to be anything insane or insanely impressive, but they need to force you to grow, evolve, and learn things. And the other thing that often, I won't say often, but it doesn't get as much attention, I think, is I'm also always trying to purify the weak parts of me, get rid of the parts of me that are going to lead to my downfall. If you can't do that, then you're going to be in a very rough position. Like because all your success can be undone with a night of heavy drinking, and it'll be like, okay, well, good luck there. In fact, I'd say just kind of on this note to put a nice bow on it, it's more important to avoid stupidity than it is to seek greatness. Because as long as you avoid stupidity, you're always in a position to go after something great, no matter how old you get. Like you could turn 50 and have done nothing, but as long as you haven't like got a serious criminal charge or something, you're going to be in pretty good. And even then, you can. It's just going to be infinitely more difficult. But if you're like in prison, you can't. So but yeah, that's what I would say. If someone met me now, I'm just a person trying to get the most out of life, and that's kind of my philosophy for doing so.
So, do you think, especially when you were younger, do you think you were more motivated by trying to get far away as possible from who you didn't want to be, rather than trying to get closer to who you did want to become?
Yeah, that's all you can do. Or at least that's all I was trying to do. I didn't like the environment I grew up in or anything like that. I just was coming up, and that's yeah, I would say that guided a lot of my decisions and a lot of my outcomes. Is just trying to not be something. Now, eventually, you have to switch and you have to try and become something. But at first, it was very much about not becoming someone. That was very important to me.
Why do you think, especially when you were a young kid growing up in the projects of Pittsburgh, why do you think that you didn't get pulled into a life that I guess people would see and, not be shocked if you did get pulled into that type of life?
Um, Luck. I mean, there's so actually, the more I think about it, the more credit I give luck. I need to write this down. No, I'm just I say that because I'm working on. I don't know if you're familiar with my YouTube channel or not, but I took a pretty big hiatus from my YouTube channel, and then going forward, now that I have a new book coming out, or a new book out, I should say, I'm going to continue to use my YouTube channel, and then make it a podcast as well, and continue to have outreach. And then there are topics that I want to discuss, and this is a really important one that I think people don't give nearly enough discussion to. But with that said, I don't think I'll forget it, but I know where my notebook is. um, Luck, and the more I think about it, there's more luck involved than even I probably gave credit for, because when we think about luck, a lot of times what we think about is kind of what we immediately benefit from or don't benefit from, or rather are not, are suffer from. You dodge the bullet or you got lucky is kind of how we look at it. And no one says you got lucky when we talk about uh when we talk about like bad outcomes. But that's luck too. But in terms of my situation and my luck, in terms of the things that I had no control over, I didn't have control over, where I was born. And that might sound crazy to say in this context because I was born and raised in a fairly degenerate, violent, destitute housing project. But there are worse projects. There are worse times to be born in the projects. I was born in the 80s. And while the 80s were pretty bad, the early 90s and 80s, I mean, maybe it wasn't the worst time, maybe it was. I don't know. But I know that I got a friend, or I had a friend, I guess, when I was a little kid, and I watched him get killed when I was like, I must have been, I know how my sister wasn't walking yet, so I couldn't have been any older than 4. And I watched this kid get killed. And the only reason why I didn't get killed is because I didn't cross the street. It's luck. Um, it's not like I'm 3. I'm like 3, 4. It's luck. Um, who my mom was, and I didn't. I criticized my mom a lot because I think it's all rightfully due. I think the only reason why anybody ever gave me kickback about it, which would be my mom and sometimes my sister, is because they're too close to it. As my sister has gotten farther away from it, especially with my mom passing, she's a little more understanding. But for all my mom's flaws, she um, did some things correct intentionally. Like she was really big on books in the house. She read like she my mom always read them fiction books. Like she was a big Stephen King um person, and I can't remember the guy who wrote the book, but I know he's prolific. His name is Owen Meany. I mean, the name of the book is A Prayer for Owen Meany. I can't remember the author of the book, but I know that guy's prolific. I know that she read a lot of VC Andrews. So like a lot of fiction. And they've got studies out that show that like one of the biggest indicators of academic success in your life, which translates into other success, is going to be um, books in the house. Now, my mom made sure we could read pretty early. It was a good trait, but the other thing my mom did that was terrible, and I'm undoing the effects of that as an adult. I was afraid to get in trouble because I didn't want to get my ass kicked. And by the time I was big enough to like stand up for myself, I had already started a transition into another life where that wasn't an issue. So there's those combinations of things. Um, even down to how I look. I personally at this moment in my life don't think I'm a bad looking guy. I don't think I'm gonna be gracing any GQs, but like I don't think my looks work against me. Where I'm going with this is that when I was growing up, I was teased a lot for how I look, and that made me like not want to associate with a lot of people. Made me want to stay away. My mom was also real big into like she I had to like fight with my mom to play football in high school. She didn't want me playing sports because she thought it would just be me fulfilling another stereotype about black kids. So there's all this stuff that all together more or less keeps me out of the worst trouble. Not all trouble, but the worst trouble. And then that made a big difference. It's luck. Now, I didn't have control over a lot of the stuff before I was 14. But that's what it comes down to. I look, and I wish there was a better answer, but what you got to remember is the two most important things for a person's success in life they have no control over, and those are in this order, by the way, too: where they live, the zip code, and their parents. Because ultimately, as you get older, you don't have You spend more. You spend like all your time with your children when they're little. Like right now, there's somebody with my son, and my wife's with my son, and then I'll be out there with my son. We're always with them. Um, but right now our time with him is like 95%. When he was born, it was like 100, and that's probably higher than 95 because now he goes to like his little school twice a week for 3 hours, and my sister will come and hang out with him or sometimes. But as they get older, eventually that shifts as they get friends, and your friends, the quality of your friends, they're going to be determined by the zip code you live in. So that's important, and you eventually end up spending all of your time with them, and you want to fit in. You want to, that's where a lot of the stuff comes, and then your family, the values you get imparted with. I don't have control over any of that, and that stuff makes such a big difference.
I want to talk about both of those factors and starting with the parents. So, when you were a kid, you didn't have an older male figure to look up to, like a father. How do you think that forced you to be more introspective and look inward?
No, it didn't. It's no because when you're young, you don't realize what you don't even have for real. I didn't even realize, and when you do realize it, you don't even realize what you're missing, or rather, how you're affected by it. You have no idea, not till you get older, and if you do some work and you start to learn about these things. So it's not like I grew up thinking that okay, here's how all this is going to work. Like no, I had no idea. There's no introspection. I'm just figuring out life, man. Doing the best I can, and or I was doing the best I could is a better way to say that. So it's in past tense. Well, I mean, because I'm still doing the best I can, but now I'm highly aware of the effects of it, and then how I unintentionally would about um, filling that gap. And fortunately for me, that gap got filled positively, although late. So it ended up working out well.
And then the other factor, the zip code for success. So you, like we said, you grew up in the projects of Pittsburgh, but you won a lottery to go to a different high school. How did literally expanding your horizons and exposing yourself to a completely different world, how did that change you?
Oh well, you just said it. It expanded my horizons and it showed me a different way to live. I see something different. Because if you grow up and all you know is one thing, then that's what you know, right? And you move accordingly. Eventually, that reality and the habits you have, they come into contact with the bigger reality, and you know some people don't adapt, some people do, most don't. But because of that, I was in a position to do well, or I won't say do well, but survive. I started early. I meet different people, and it changes how things go.
So for someone like yourself who had, it seems like, a conscious awareness of, okay, I don't like, or the environment that I'm in isn't serving me to my highest potential. When you are in high school and you are struggling academically, why do you think you were struggling there? Did it feel like it just wasn't an environment for you, or were there other factors?
Nah, well, I'd say the biggest. I mean, it's hard to say which one is bigger, but I know the two factors I was constantly dealing with. One, because of the schools I went to before, I didn't have a strong base of how to learn, how to study, how to focus, and that how to study thing because I never seen anyone else in my life, really focus on anything long term. I had no idea how to go about doing these things. Now, as I watch my friends in this new school pick it up, I was like, okay, this makes sense. You sit, you learn. But my commute to and from school every day was a total of 2 hours. 1 hour there, 1 hour back. So I'm already losing that time. I don't want to go home. So I play sports and I get a job. So I don't even have the time to study. I don't have time to study. I don't have time to focus on things. Really surviving by the skin of my teeth, and didn't really survive. I didn't actually graduate high school. A lot of my friends don't know that. As I explained to them, it's not because I've written about it now in the book. It it comes out a lot better, or it comes out a lot better. They're like, "Oh, no kidding." I'm like, "Yeah, that was a thing," but if that doesn't go anywhere, um, I won't say if that doesn't go anywhere, because that didn't go anywhere. That those were two big challenges for me in school, and then the school I went to, the rigor was up there, but I didn't have the circumstances to really do well.
Interesting. And then when you went off to college, you say you had zero confidence in your capabilities to learn. So, I mean, when you went to college, how did it feel like you were already, playing from behind?
Oh, because I had zero confidence in my abilities to learn. Um, that's straight up how it was. You don't go through that environment, and then you do poorly in school, and then you don't have the tools to recover. You don't know how. You don't know how to focus. It's the same thing.
That ultimately leads you to dropping out of college, and that becomes the birth for the next chapter of your life, which is, I guess, where you really get your start, which is your boxing career. What amount of time was it with your boxing where it went from like, all right, let me give this a shot to, hey, like, I'm pretty good at this and I can do something with this?
That's probably the wrong question to ask because like I went into it with, like, in my opinion, the best intentions. It was, I'm going to stick with this until I can't do it anymore, and so I did. I just kept training and kept getting better. As far as how long that took, I mean, I feel like I'm still getting better, but what in terms of like what helped me, or rather how long it took to move forward. Um, that it's hard to think of it that way. It is just because each level's got a different level, right? I beat the local guys, and then I get to a national stage, and then I start fighting only nationally ranked fighters after in the top 10-ish for the last year, and then you go pro, and then it starts all over again. It's an interesting process. It's you just stay with it. There's no now. Do I think that a person should enter the sport with the idea that there's a kind of a stop point? I don't know about a stop point, but I say give it a year before you know if you like it or not. I probably did not. In fact, I know I didn't follow that advice. But I guess I did, because if I really disliked it and really hated it, I would have stopped after a year. So,
That's interesting. I feel like what I'm hearing is like the mindset was you weren't even focused on like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. It was kind of just more so short term, like just following the process day by day and
yeah,
seeing where it was going to go rather than stepping out of that or detaching, be like, hey, I'm pretty good. Just being so fully
I
engrossed in the
I
process.
happened to apply myself to boxing
Yeah.
for the first time, and then the doors that's opened up. It's really interesting. But yeah,
Boxing is obviously a very physically demanding sport, but what I find so interesting about your experience with boxing is it seems like it didn't just take a toll on your body inside the ring, but more so your life outside the ring. Can you talk to me more about the struggles of living in Los Angeles when you were part of the All American Heavyweight program?
well, I mean the struggles, man. Look, the cool thing about that program is they paid me. They paid for my apartment. If it wasn't for that program, I actually that program saved me twice. The first time immediately when I was like wondering where I would live or pay rent in the apartment that I was about to lose. And then the second time because I was smart and used the money they were paying me to pay down my debt and get a car. When I left the program, I was able to drive home, and I had a car to get back and forth to the gym and everything like that. So it ended up working out pretty well. But as far as being there, I was lonely. I didn't really know anybody. Anybody who's ever lived in LA or been to LA knows, when I went out there, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car for most of my time out there, so I was pretty damn lonely. And yeah, and on the top of that, I went out there drinking, and I live in PA, which is one of the two states where the state regulates the sale of liquor. Most people don't understand because most people don't live in Pennsylvania or Utah that I can't just go to Target or Walmart and buy a bottle of liquor. You can do that in other states. In PA, where I grew up, you cannot do that. I get to Cali where you can, so it was real easy to get to make my life all about drinking. I lived right across the street from a Target, and even if I did, you can go to the gas station. So I found a way to always get some alcohol.
How long were you living in LA where it felt like your relationship with alcohol really took a turn for the worse?
Whole time. Well, I was out there for like almost 2 years. I mean, probably got like the worst after the first. When did I win that? Probably, probably like after the first like 6 or 7 months.
What I find interesting though is so dropping out of school propelled you to get into boxing, which had a positive benefit. Obviously, boxing and then moving out to LA leads you to having a poor relationship with alcohol, but then that poor relationship with alcohol propels you into another chapter of your life, which is joining the army. How did that phase of your life with joining the army impact you, and especially with your relationship with alcohol?
Well, that was the first time I was able to. The first time in my adult life where like there was no alcohol around. You go through basic training, ain't no alcohol in that basic training. Then you go to AIT, no alcohol in AIT. So first time in a long time where I'm completely sober. And then I'm like at AIT, especially making social connections and friends without alcohol, and that changes my identity, which is awesome because I get to see and become someone completely different. Not completely different, but I get to see people are like, okay, we're gonna hang out and kick it with him without booze, and I can build an identity without it, and it's really kind of cool that way. Because one of the things that terrifies people getting sober is they're like, what am I going to do for a social life? People don't realize how important identity is, like how much of a difference that makes. And if you don't have the identity, or rather, if your identity is wrapped up in something, you're going to be reluctant to give it up. And it will make your life way more difficult than it needs to be. Like, way more difficult. So, that is what ended up happening to me. I ended up, getting rid of, seeing what happened, seeing what could be without the booze, and it made getting sober easier.
2013 is a big year for you. So, like we were just talking about, you joined the army at the start of 2013, and then you bookend that with getting sober in December. And for the first 15 months of your sobriety, you said you didn't go out at all at night. How do you think that kind of chosen solitude compared to the loneliness you were feeling in LA?
Well, it wasn't. It was a different. It wasn't loneliness. Is the thing. I didn't go out at night, but I was intentional about meeting people during the day. I also had my girlfriend too, now the wife. Um, and I also had like us a life, like because in LA it was just boxing. Home after the army it was it was boxing, but it was also my military drills. It was also school. It was also work. It was also the girlfriend. It was also people who met me during the day. It was a lot. It wasn't, or rather, it was a lot of social interaction. It wasn't just um, me hanging out in a cave by myself, going to the gym like it was in LA.
It feels like boxing for you was just a prequel for your life, like just a catalyst for showing you, hey, I can do something with my life and I can actually be someone. Like you boxed, but you weren't just a boxer and you didn't allow your entire identity to be wrapped up in it. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of guys have a problem leaving any sport. Their identity becomes that sport. Or their identity really becomes whatever they pour themselves into.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing about pouring, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. The thing with sports is that eventually there's a time where you got to give it, you have to give it up. And this, what do you do then? Um, for me, you know, boxing helped me realize I could build an identity because you have to build it. You don't discover it, you build it. And I had never built anything or had committed to anything before then, but finally I was.
So you really develop yourself from a physical standpoint with the boxing, but then this leads you into really developing yourself intellectually, which is where a lot of your work continues to be within this world now of writing. You start writing on social media, on Twitter, and now you have been publishing books. Before getting into the writing side of things, though, I want to talk about the reading side of things. Your favorite book is A Course in Miracles. How did that help you develop your spirituality and understanding, like you say, of forgiveness?
Well, that's the whole kind of so when people don't know, like, you know, the Course in Miracles is it's the best way to describe it. I'll just tell you what the person says it is. Person says, I can't remember her name, says that it's Jesus talking to her and she's just writing it down. And what it is a recipe, you know, kind of to find love and forgiveness, and it goes about explaining that. And it's a thick book. It is not a casual read whatsoever. So I wouldn't even say it's a light read either. You know, like some books are long but easy to get through. Others are short, but holy heck, you're looking up every other word and thinking about each concept each time. I think it falls somewhere on the upper end. Out, you know, but being introduced to the idea of forgiveness really in that concept from that book, that really helped me out. Like that helped me make a big difference and a big change in my life. So really helped me with my relationship with my mom. It helped me to like see that, you know, she just did the best she could with what she knew, and if I was in her position, I would have likely done the same. Because I would, exactly in her position, not like not with what I knew or how I saw the world, but seeing it from her perspective, and to understand that that any transgression isn't intentional, it just is what it is.
And you feel like you had a greater appreciation for that while you were actively reading the book, or was that more of a slow reflective process after reading the book?
I mean, it's both. You read it and you have the immediate impact, and then the ideas stay with you, and you reread it and all that. You know, a good book. You know, you reread and it stays with you. It doesn't have an immediate impact.
So, getting into the writing side of things now, how do you think your writing and creative process have evolved over the course of your life?
Well, I still use writing to organize my thoughts. It's just the technicals continue to help it improve. It's yeah, that's it's like everything. You practice and you keep getting better.
What I like is it seems like for you, writing allowed you to go from addictive to obsessive. And what I mean that by that is I see addiction as being very consumption based and obsessive is creation based. So you went from somebody who was an alcoholic, like you didn't change who you were as a person. Like I've heard you talk about how moderation just like doesn't exist for you. Like for you, you're like all in when it comes to stuff that like you're really passionate about and really connects with you. So it's like, okay, Ed Latimore didn't change as a person. We're just going to change the input that we're using. So rather than alcohol, it's going to be writing.
Yeah, or training, or
Yeah.
yeah, you have to find something. You know, it makes such a big difference when you have a constructive outlet to be obsessed slash addicted to. And when you look at the behaviors, which is all we really have to go on. When you look at the behavior, it doesn't matter whether you call it addictive or consumptive. It's all the same. So, in other words, it's amoral. It's neither good nor bad. You have to figure out which one it, not which one it'll be, but what you'll do with it. Like if you're wired in that way where you're gonna have to deal with addiction, then you better find something good. You better find something solid. Uh, but if you don't, then you're gonna something is gonna fill that gap.
Yeah. It's, I think it gets into this framework of it's important to find something where you're releasing something from yourself rather than always taking in and always consuming.
Yeah.
Your newest book was just released, so huge congrats on that. Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business. You've been writing for a while now, but this is big from the standpoint that it's your first book with a publisher. How has that experience differed from self-publishing?
Oh man, that's a whole. Oh, well, for starters, they pay you up front, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, it's really nice because a book takes a lot of time and energy. What people don't understand about books is that, well, with some people who have done them get this 100%. You don't make money on books. That is clear. So if you have the opportunity to do so, you should do it. The book sets you up for a lot of other opportunities that will make you money, but only if it's a good book. So, working with a house definitely, forced me to create a good book. Like I'm very proud of what I created, and hearing the feedback and the reviews that are starting to trickle in, I'm just happy. I'm happy with how it turned out. It made me a better writer because there were different eyes on it, cleaning things up, picking things out. So that ended up working out great.
When it came to self-publishing, did it always feel like I'm at this by myself versus like publishing I've got a team behind me? Like did it feel like you had more pressure on you at times? Like getting into I guess the EQ psyche side of things when writing. How did that differ?
Well, yeah, I mean they call it self publishing for a reason. It's you. Now you can go hire a team, but you're hiring a team. When you have a house, they are in effect hiring you. And it's reflected in the fact that they pay you, and then they take a pretty significant chunk on the back end. Like for every copy sold, I think I'll only earn like $2. Um, they're paying you to write the book. They're investing with it. It's like venture capital and self publishing. You're writing it now because they're paying you. Yeah, there are deadlines, there are standards to be met. There is a different kind of pressure, but The underlying mechanism is still the same. You still got to write a great book. You still have to write the best thing you can produce.
This is a nonfiction book, but you've said that writing a fiction novel has always been your dream. Do you feel like you want to use your life and your experiences to inspire a fiction novel, or do you feel like fiction writing is more so of a way for you to detach and separate from your life and create almost like a new world?
It's a bit of a false dichotomy. It I just want to tell stories that I find interesting. And what I find interesting, obviously, is going to be influenced by what I've experienced, but it'll also be, will also serve as the basis because that's, what I know in my life. Whatever genre I port those experiences into, the underpinning of a story is still, the connection aspect, the human storytelling. We're looking at people like good science fiction, for example. If I was to write science fiction, good science fiction is just a story about people in a universe where the science makes a difference in like what's possible. Horror stories about people, but there's a ghost or something in the background or a monster. Literary fiction. Well, we're just going to talk about the stories with the people, and it'll be done so in a way that it will only appeal to the highbrows of society. Kind of do. Even romance. Why do you think romance is the highest selling genre by a fairly significant margin? Because that is like in the title. That is about people, and about relationships.
So you've clearly developed your voice through writing. And you said you were just originally very focused on writing in that medium rather than speaking and literally using your voice. And you've talked about and you've written about how when you were growing up, you actually learned how to shut up and kind of just fit in and not literally use your voice. But that's something that you've tried to develop more and get better at in your adult life. And you've literally done physical training to develop your voice. How has that played a role within your adult life where, okay, I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to develop my voice that way, but now let me further go down this path and develop my literal voice?
I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. It it's just, as you live, you end up with a different way to express things than somebody else, even if they went through the same things. Um, so so your voice ends up being your kind of unique, um, output from your inputs, because your inputs, even if they're identical to someone else, you got a different way of seeing the world because of what you experienced and went through. Two people can see the same thing and come up with two completely different interpretations, and so of it, and two different takeaways or whatever. And so all I do is just try to live and move and work with stuff, and that'll end up being great.
You've gone through a lot of shifts throughout your life, like we've talked about. How do you think fatherhood has changed you the most?
It's just put something in the background for me to think about all the time. That's what you're doing. You have this thing in the back of your mind all the time, and you also have to model good behavior or ideal behavior. You have to model what you want your children to become, because they don't become what you tell them to become. It doesn't work that way. And my mom used to say that all the time. Do what I say, not as I do. I'm like, you don't understand. Um, it doesn't work that way. Your children become who you are. So if you want any hope of your children being good people, you got to become a better person. You have to push yourself to something higher. Which is what I try to do. One of the great things about having children older is that you have gone through a lot and you've learned a lot and you figured things out. But when you don't have that, when you're younger, I'm not even convinced it's a trade off. I mean, I'm in great shape. People say, you don't have the energy. Man, I just fought a heavyweight fight at age 40. Man, I don't know what you're talking about. That's your again. That's something that you're responsible for. But you can't do anything about is how long it takes your brain to develop. Right. So there's the more I think about it, the having a kid, being a father, it just makes me just more aware of how I behave in the world. And the stakes are higher for everything. You can't, for everything.
There's the classic saying, tough times create tough people. In today's day and age, for you and for people in general, how do you envision instilling toughness in your son without necessarily needing tough times to do that?
Well, you have to manufacture them. You have to, but you don't have to manufacture tough. First, I actually think, that's a bit of survivor's bias. We only see the people who make it and we go, oh, it was tough, they made it. We don't look at all the people who didn't. And that usually outnumbers the survivors by a significant amount. That's why the survivor's bias. I think people need to face difficulty, but it needs to be gradual. First it starts with just letting him figure out how something works, or letting him fall off or something a little bit, and nothing too dangerous, but let the risk match the danger he can absorb, and then it steps up to him learning how to talk to people and greet strangers and things like that, and then working hard on stuff. You can manufacture discipline, which is what we're trying to, and discipline and impulse control. You can manufacture it. You don't need your surroundings to kill you if it doesn't, because it's going to kill a lot of people, and the lucky few who stick around, you're going to think, oh, these are the ones who made it. Not so much. I don't believe that. If for no other reason than if someone were to look at my life and go, okay, this is how you get where you're going to go. No, no, I am the lucky one. I was writing my book and I was looking something up and I saw how many of my former classmates, not from high school. High school is a different story, but guys I grew up with in the neighborhood, and classmates from middle and elementary school. How many of them are like serving real time in prison, like not just a little bit of time, or dead? Survivor's bias, man. You got to avoid that and go instead. What really works to build people up, and I think is it's the family. Yeah, I think my wife and I do a good job with that, and what we model. Yeah. And then being intentional about it. You got to be intentional when you raise a kid. You can't just kind of do the minimum, which is what I think certainly a lot of people from my community do. It's a badge of honor if your kid don't go to jail or have a kid early. And I'm like, it's like the bare minimum. Like, you may as well say, well, you survived and you didn't die. And I'm like, okay, great.
It seems like you had to unlearn or reconfigure a lot of things from your childhood to become who you are today, or you needed to reflect back and heal certain parts of you, like you said, just having greater appreciation for your mom and the way that she raised you, and just appreciating that she did the best that she could. Do you think there's anything within your childhood that really served you in your best interest that you've always been able to tap into throughout the course of your life?
Maybe standing up for myself. That's for sure. Standing up for myself. Problem is, you become reactive. I know sometimes I tend to be a little reactive, but I temper that with other traits that I developed outside of the environment. But definitely reactiveness, or standing up for myself, and I also learned to detach myself pretty well. Which, like, again, you can take it too far, but if you temper that, it keeps people from being able to take advantage of you. Very hard to take advantage of emotionally, if not impossible. Because if I feel it, I just snip and go, okay, what are we doing here, and I won't let it happen.
Another unique component to you that just further shows the three dimensionality of who you are as a person is your love of chess and being a really good chess player. And I like the way you describe your understanding of chess, which is you can't look into the future, you can only survey the current landscape. With that in mind, what does that survey of your life look like right now?
Just always building. I don't feel like I'm anything anywhere close to making it. I still have my challenges and my issues, but also always trying to solve them. Always trying to be proactive. Always trying to put myself in a position to make the most out of things and to figure things out. You do that, you're going to end up in a pretty good spot.
Do you feel like you'll always feel like you're nowhere close to who you want to be?
Yeah, for sure. You only get what, if you're lucky, 70 good years, maybe 80. There's so many things to learn and do, and so many imperfections in us. It's a constant development. Life is constant development.
And do you feel like for you, it's continuing going down the path with writing, or do you see yourself wanting to explore different avenues as well?
Well, right now, writing is what I'm interested in, and teaching. Stuff, boxing a lot of times, but who knows where the future goes? I'm only 40. I've got a few good years, well, a few good decades left of my mind, and we'll see where that goes.
Ed, it's been awesome to talk with you. Where can people go to connect with you, buy your book, anything else you'd want to plug?
I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. Just Ed Latimore on Twitter, Instagram. My website is edlatimore.com. And my book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing and the Art of Life. If you can't remember that, just Ed Latimore on Amazon, and it's the newest book. So yeah, that's where you can connect and find me.
Awesome, Ed. Great talking with you today.
Hey, thanks, man.